For many of us, the concept of health is defined as absence of disease. But do you really believe that to be true? As a specialist surgeon and teacher, I have come to the firm belief that true health is a balanced state between the mind, the body, and the soul. Under the Knife with Dr. Arun is an attempt to tap into the wisdom of world experts from various fields to learn practical tools that can allow us to change our own destiny. Not just in the field of health and wellness, rather in every facet of a fulfilled life. But it begins with health. Because as Emerson said, health is our first wealth, the value of which is only recognized when it is lost. Join me in welcoming another global expert in this episode as we explore some amazing self-empowering ideas today. Hello and welcome everybody to this podcast, Under the Knife with Dr. Arun. My name is Dr. Arun Dheer and I'm your host. My endeavor of this podcast is to bring empowering and uniquely gifted individuals on this podcast that allow us to share their wisdom and their experience such that we can live more fulfilled, empowered, and meaningful lives. My guest today is a very, very special person because we became friends during the times when COVID was still very rampant in Melbourne, the city where I live. And Melbourne and Demian and I connected in a very unique way. So my guest today is Demian Curry, who is a researcher and a speaker in the space of human behavior. Demian has had a very interesting journey, as in he's an award-winning physicist, a former chief analyst from Citibank Australia, and the only vegetarian ever to be head of product development for Barbecues Galore. Now, that really caught my attention because being a vegetarian myself, I was finding it very intriguing that how can you rise to such a position without actually understanding what the customers, your clients are eventually going to be getting. So we'll talk about that, Demian. And of course, you have since evolved from going from a corporate space into your current work, which involves being a researcher and speaker on how people make decisions, both large and small, in various aspects of their life and what influences this. What influences the decision-making process? And I'd be really curious to delve further into this. So, Demian, thank you so much for joining me today.
It's good to be here, my friend, and it's been so long since I've seen you.
I know.
2021 or something that
Exactly.
yeah.
Yes, and I still remember, the words that we exchanged, the connection, and all of that. And it was like almost instant. I said, I need to be close to this guy. I need to get to know more of what he's got. So, thank you, Demian, for taking out the time. I want to begin by actually unpacking a little bit of your story, like going from a corporate world. And we will talk about vegetarian as well, because that's something that I'm passionate about too. Uh, but yeah, tell me a little bit about what has unpacked or kind of, unpack it for me a little bit. What has been going on that has led you to come to where you are today?
Well, thank you, Aaron. That is a long and interesting question because a lot of people, when you ask them about how they fell into their career or whatever, it's surprising that people tend to fall into two groups. They there's the type that left school, wanted to be an engineer, wanted to be a doctor, wanted to be a lawyer. They went into that field and they stayed there. And that particularly for our generation, exactly, yeah. For our generation, like I'm older than you. I'm 62, right? And so growing up in the 60s and 70s, it was expected of you that you would settle on a career and you would stay on that career. And I was never destined to do that. I actually, funnily enough, studied 6 weeks of medicine. 6 weeks. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, it was. Interestingly enough, I didn't do any science at high school. Hated science. Did the minimum amount of maths that I was allowed to do, according to school rules. Like in those days, English was compulsory. I think it still is in Australia, but maths was not compulsory under the rules of the state. But maths was compulsory under the rules of our school. And so I did the minimum amount of maths I could do. I was much more interested in literature and philosophy and the languages, things like that. And I remember, leaving school, and I went straight into medicine because I loved the idea of medicine. The practice of medicine. And my uncle, who just passed away early on this year after a long life. He was in his mid-90s. He was a legendary doctor, like a legendary doctor, like a truly gifted man in the sense that he could diagnose. He was a diagnostician. Right? And the things like the lateral thinking, the unbelievable insights that he had, and coming in from left field, being able to uncover diagnoses that had eluded doctors for decades in certain individuals. And that inspired me. But when I went to uni, I was quite distressed by, can I put it like this, Arun, and you'll take it in exactly the spirit in which I mean it. There weren't enough people like you studying medicine, like the people who really believe in the nature of helping people, the reason why people become doctors, the reason why people take the Hippocratic Oath. Talking to a lot of the other people in my year and say, well, what made you become a doctor? And they go, oh, want to drive a BMW. Like that, that was the most common answer. They were so money driven. And, and I thought, okay, I was young, I was 18, but I thought, how long can I stay independent of that? How long can I be with these people before they start influencing me? And I left. I left. I thought, I'll find my own path. And interestingly enough, I still wanted to understand medicine. I still wanted to understand the human body. But I thought, and you can't understand the human body without understanding its physiology, like how things work. And you can't understand physiology without understanding biochemistry. Correct. And of course, how can you possibly understand biochemistry without understanding chemistry itself? And then what is chemistry? But as we say, 10 electron volt physics, like if chemistry is just a branch of physics. And so I found my way
into physics.
Yeah. And as is often said, like somewhere in life, the human body just slipped between my fingers.
Yeah.
I became a physicist, and that was truly one of the most remarkable things.
But I think, Demian, can I just interrupt very briefly just on that sort of segment of what you've said in terms of, given that I'm a health and well-being practitioner and a medical practitioner, and you have had an exposure, and I can see that the theme in your sort of journey so far was really around understanding human behavior, but you were coming from the element of physics. Physics is the laws of energy, laws of, how this universe works. And to be honest, the amazing thing is, and this really hit me hard when I actually looked at it in that way, the world has got almost 65 to 70% is water, and the rest is all solid. All right. The same is with human body. 65 to 70% of us, we are water, and the rest is solid. So the point I'm trying to make is these laws of energy, laws of physics, these are all universal laws, and they affect our health and well-being as much as they affect the planet.
It is amazing, a really good observation, because it is surprising how the laws of the very, very small, like we know that the quantum physics, atomic physics, atomic physics, it's a very different world from the macro world. The rules of physics as we see them, like the forces that hold up bridges, the reasons why cars travel, that sort of thing, the reason why planets orbit, the reason why the apple falls from the tree to the earth. These are the macro things. These are the things we observe. But the rules of the subatomic world are very different. They are quantum rules. However, having said that, exactly as you describe, it is amazing how the interesting rules of the quantum realm have analogies in the larger world. They're different rules, but they have analogies, like the uncertainty principle. The uncertainty principle is a very good example, where in physics, it's a very specific thing. The uncertainty principle says that that you have two observables of a particle, the position and the momentum. Or for our purposes, the speed. So you have the position or the speed. Now, in the macro world, you can know both of those at exactly the same time.
Correct.
That's what sat nav does. It's telling you
Yes.
speed, telling you exact position. In
Mm.
the subatomic world, you cannot know both of those to any fine degree. You cannot know both of them at the same time. The act of observing
Yes.
that particle changes this behavior, and that's the key.
Yeah.
Observing it changes the behavior, and so
And that's the quantum, the realm as such, isn't it? Like the whole observation of it changes the perspective, changes the context. In
Well,
fact, last year, the Nobel Prize for Physics had gone to the quantum theory of entanglement. That means we are all floating in a web of energy.
Correct.
All of us.
Correct.
We are all connected.
Correct. And the reason why it works in the quantum realm is completely different from the reason why it works in the macro world. But they've got amazing analogies, and that's the thing that surprises me. Like with uncertainty, the reason why it is true in the quantum world is very different to the reasons why the uncertainty principle holds in our daily lives. That just by observing something, just by being part of it, you influence it, you change it.
So coming to, for anybody who's listening to this conversation, and without making it too hairy-fairy for them, and I know I jumped into your own story, but I can understand, I can already see that there has been a theme. You went to corporate and then you went to come out, and we'll come back to that in a moment. But I want to find out, Demian, what really causes humans to make decisions? Are we just this subtle mass which is being influenced by our environment, as you were when you were in med school for 6 weeks? You were influenced by the environment, people with different goals which were conflicting to yours. What exactly causes us to actually start changing our behavior eventually, whether it's for the good, for the bad? That's something that destiny tells.
Here's the key to it. In all of my adult life, more than 40 years of adult life, I have uncovered only 7 reasons that affect behavior, that affect our decisions. In other words, and it's probably easiest to think from the point of view of, imagine you are trying to influence someone else. Like, it might be your teenage child, trying to convince your teenage child to go out less and study more. Right? It might be trying to convince a client to do business with you, or it might be a counselor trying to help someone navigate an abusive relationship, and like the counselor knows exactly what the client, the patient, needs to do.
Sure.
But is the patient doing it? And so, like, there's so many different types of, influence. But imagine you are the person. So for each of your listeners, just imagine you've got, imagine the last time you tried to influence someone. And did they say yes, or did they say no? Or did they say yes, but not follow through? And so often we find that our attempts to influence fail. And in all of my adult life, I've never seen any exception to this rule, that there are only 7 reasons why we say no. There are only 7 reasons why a persuasive effort fails. And I mean, these 7 reasons, this will be revealed in a book that'll be coming in a couple of years' time. I've got to finish the research, but at the moment, my claim is there are no other reasons other than the 7, and I'm going to be putting this research out to the public domain to have it scrutinized. It'll be like an open source. It'll be an open source theory. It'll be donated to the Creative Commons, and I'm looking for any exception or any example, whatever. That is there an 8th reason? Right?
As far as I can say that, being a parent myself, Demian, that it's very hard to influence, especially teenagers, And I think it was a moment of my own realization that you can only be a role model. And I think that was a freeing moment for me, because I realized, what? I can only be a role model to someone else. And I've made a genuine endeavor to bring that into my consulting work as well with my patients and everybody else, whoever comes to see me, that I can be a role model, And I often say that if you have got diabetes, you would not go and see a medical doctor who's got diabetes himself or who's overweight himself, because we know weight and diabetes are linked, So, I mean, that's the analogy that I give, So
absolutely. In fact, as my father used to say, your life is your sermon.
Yeah, exactly.
Tell people what you like, but your life is your sermon.
Yeah. And I heard it in a different way. And it said that, your actions speak so loud that I can barely hear a word you say.
I remember that from Stephen Covey. It was in the preface to The 7 Habits.
Habits of Highly Effective People. Exactly. So that was really powerful. That stuck with me.
Absolutely.
So I guess, Demian, blending a little bit of physics, a little bit of health and well-being and, healthcare, there is an emerging space or emerging science, which is called psychoneuroimmunology, which means psycho means your thinking. Neuro means your brain network, and your immune system is immunology, So these three are deeply interlinked. And there is an emerging whole branch of science which talks about it. And decisions are a reflection of your thinking pattern. How do we start if somebody is saying, what, after listening to this conversation, there is a doctor on this podcast and there is a physicist. How do I merge the experience, what you have got, to actually start to create empowering habits which allow me to make empowering decisions?
Yeah. The interesting thing about being a physicist when it comes to making your own empowering decisions in life is that it's not about the knowledge. Like, okay, the knowledge of physics is interesting. But what is interesting is that it creates in you a discipline to look for evidence.
Yes.
To not be easily fooled. To not jump at the first conclusion. To not lock into the first explanation of something that makes sense.
Right.
That to me is, in terms of empowering ourselves, one of the areas of healthcare that seriously distresses me, I could often say, is the way there is so much misinformation about diet, about nutrition, about exercise, and look, a lot of it's well-meaning. A lot of people, get on YouTube and they have a YouTube channel, and they're talking about exercise regimes or eating regimes or whatever, and they're well-meaning, but they're able to be very convincing by creating a story about how the body works, creating a story about how a particular nutrient works, and without offering much by evidence, just by creating a story around it, by saying, well, this does this, does this, does this, presto, lower cholesterol. And seeing the way people fall into that, because it is a convincing sounding story. And being a disciplined scientist just causes you to say, well, wait there, is that the full story? Probably the best example was this product which I like. A product that I like is called a NutriBullet. I don't know whether you've ever heard it. And look, I actually own one because it makes great smoothies. And if any of your listeners remember the ads, the promo ads, the infotainment videos, I think about 10 years ago or something, where you had the demonstrator, with an audience that was paid to nod their head, and in amazement, right? And they did a great demonstration. Put some greens and nuts and things in a blender and put in the NutriBullet, and then poured it through. Then poured it through a gauze, like a filter gauze. And obviously, as we know, the smoothie made in the blender just was very chunky, didn't go through very well. But with the NutriBullet, went through beautifully. Now, that is convincing. That is evidence.
Yes.
But the story they created made me angry. Because it is beautiful. It is beautiful, 3D animation of it. Says the reason why NutriBullet works is that the blades in the action tear open the cell walls and release the nutrients that are locked inside. Everybody's thinking, wow, isn't it good to be able to get those nutrients locked inside? And look, it might be true. It might be true that the blades do, tear open those cell walls. But the question is, do you need a NutriBullet to do that? Because there is an alternative.
Yes.
Just eat it, and the digestion will do it.
The body does it for you anyways.
Correct. Just eat it, right? But that's what I'm saying. You've got a lot of misinformation and often guys of convincing stories or convincing explanations of why this nutrient or why this practice is superior. But one of the things that my study of physics has gifted me is the ability to ask, is this the whole story? Is there more to this? Like, because the interesting thing, the demonstration or the explanation wasn't false, right?
Yeah.
Maybe the blades do open the cell walls. It wasn't false.
Yeah.
But was it the whole story?
I think the way it was marketed, probably that's how I look at it. There is an element of marketing that is involved in it. But I think I hear what you're saying, Demian, that, as a physicist, you are conditioned to look at the evidence. And I'll tell you, as a medical practitioner, this is what medicine teaches you. That's why we say, we have got very thick analytical brains.
Yes. There's
a conscious brain, analytical brain, and then a subconscious, because everything you analyze, is it real? Is it not real? And we have this, as medical doctors, we look for evidence. Show us the studies, show us how many follow-through case studies have been done and what is the duration for which people have been followed up. And that's like ingrained in us to look at everything with suspicion. But I want to ask you, there is power in belief, though. There is power in faith. Do you think that is true? Because sometimes belief, as they say, can shift mountains.
Of course.
You got to believe it before you see it.
Of course. And
how do you believe something when you're always looking for the evidence that whether it is real or not? How does a person, have those two things working? And how do we are talking about an individual who wants to create empowering behaviors.
I don't let my cynicism, and I don't like to call it cynicism. It's probably a better word is skepticism. Right? I don't let it rule my life.
Yes.
Simply, as I'm receiving this massive information and massive ideas, I what we call stress test. That's all. I stress test them. Having said that, I also know that when you really believe in something, it is amazing how things conspire to make it work. And so, I've seen people, as you have, recover from disease against all odds. I've seen people recover from near business failure against all odds, propelled by their belief. And I do not see these things as opposing. I do not see them even as alternatives. I see them as completely coexisting. In other words, a basic philosophy in life I have is, replace all with and. We often say, do we disbelieve until we got the evidence, or do we have faith in things? And yet there's no or. There is and. You can use your skepticism. You can use your willingness to stress test every new idea that comes to you, right? But still have a belief in what you want to achieve and the truth of your path to it. And
like the blades of the NutriBullet can open the nutrients in the cells, and your body can do that too.
It is and exactly. It is replacing or with and that's it. So the idea of strong belief to me is foundational. And look, I was, what's interesting? I was only a physicist for a few years. I stopped being a physicist in the 80s.
Right.
In the mid to late 80s.
Right.
But of course, with the philosophy of it has influenced my, the rest of the trajectory of my life. But I've been propelled by a series of beliefs.
Yeah.
A series of beliefs, of faiths, and that to me has made my life feel it's been deep and fulfilling and worthwhile. In other words,
meaningful.
exactly. I don't live in a world of facts. I actually live in a world of beliefs. What do I believe to be true, and how do I become that belief?
Yeah, and I so agree with that, Demian, in the sense that, what you just said, the two particles where they were located, geolocated, and the speed or their momentum was all dependent in the quantum space on the observer, where they were observing. And that exactly so true, because I remember a lot of my patients come to me and they say, oh, our health got ruined because of COVID. We gained so much weight, and relationships not going well. All the reasons, they blame it on COVID. But also, I've got people who said, you know what, COVID was the best thing that happened. We started working from home.
Yeah,
we got so much time up our sleeve now. We set up a gym in our garage.
Yeah,
all right?
absolutely.
So the same adversity happened to both sets of people. For one, it was a blessing, and for the other, it was a curse.
It's true. And actually, if I may, it
Yes.
reminds me of a particularly good book. If I may,
please, absolutely. Wow. That
in case you were wondering if
I was wondering whether that was real or virtual. Oh my God.
Yeah,
thank you for proving me wrong.
This is my library. And this book, Your Mess Has a Message.
Oh my God.
And I tell you why, I liked it. I tell you why. I tell you the reason why I liked it, and the reason why I endorsed it is because, you talk a lot about the adversity that we have, and the way we get through it and things like that. And look, there's a lot of people in this space, thank goodness, because we really do need help navigating adversity in the modern world. But beyond, like, looking deeper into your book, beyond being a lot of a lot of techniques for how you overcome different types of adversity, my finances are in a mess, my health is in a mess, my relationships in a mess. What you do, and the bit that I liked, is that you ask the deeper question, what does it mean? Okay, there's adversity happening, what does it mean? Here's how I'm reacting, what does it mean? And you're always asking, what does it mean? And finding the meaning in the situation we find ourselves, I think, is a beautiful thing. And itself is really empowering.
I wasn't expecting this, Demian, but thank you so much. It touches my heart. And more importantly, you've proven me wrong. Such a beautiful space you have. I thought this was virtual, but oh my God.
Yeah, this is
divine.
My home. Yeah, this is my home. And actually, funnily enough, like I spend a lot of time these days as a speaker and trainer, a lot of time in front of audiences and things like that. But I am deeply, deeply introverted. And this is my space. In fact, a friend of mine sent me a little hand-drawn cartoon, just a single-frame cartoon. This was right in the middle of of COVID, right in the middle of a lockdown, and it was a picture of it was a drawing of me sitting in that chair, and reading, looking up from my book, saying, "What lockdown?"
It never happened to me.
Like it's usually like it. I never noticed it. This is
the normal you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But so the one of the things that I found when I was traversing, the different phases of my career, the reason why I left medicine, right, and in fact. Going into physics, leaving physics, going into corporate life, leaving corporate life, like going on these the journeys. Now, these days, it was, it's expected. You'll have many careers. Those days it wasn't.
No.
And the uphill battle that I faced was disappointing people based on their expectations of what I should, or how I should be living my life. Like I was doctor. Everybody, all the relatives, the family were very proud of me when I started studying medicine. When I left, there was massive disappointment.
Of course.
When I left physics and decided to soil my hands with commerce, all my peers in science say, like you've won these awards, you've got such a future. And I say, yeah, but my future lies in a different direction. Same thing with like when I was in corporate life. I was like when I was at Citibank, I was 27, I think, chief analyst. And I remember people used to joke about it because they found out that I was pretty obsessive with time. Like I'm like very obsessive with time. You make sure you're at a meeting with me, you get there on time, that sort of thing. And people used to joke about it. Says you better do as he says. One day you'll be working for him. Like there was basically everybody in the bank believed that I was one day going to be running the place. And that was the point, Arun, where I said, okay, this is where I get off. Like my future is now certain. That's where I bail out. Right?
Wow.
Why would you continue to play a game where you already know the end score? Right?
Yeah.
And so, but the disappointment that people have, like you should have a corporate career, like you gave away a beautiful corporate career. You could have the car, the boat, everything like that. It's trying to resist other people's expectations.
Yeah,
is probably the hardest part of someone trying to navigate their own life and their own journey. And what basically propelled me was belief. Exactly what I was saying before.
Yeah, so exactly. And I think, Demian, what you have said and what you've demonstrated through your own life is really something that requires a lot of courage. I tell you, I've grown up in a very conservative society where I often joke, that my options for career after I finished my year 12 was to be either a doctor or a failure, or an engineer. Only 3 options,
Yeah.
So the point I'm trying to make is that, that was the conditioning that, that's what you have to be. But it takes a lot of courage to be able to say, you know what, I'm going to follow my heart. So I commend you for doing that. But because those times were not easy times, those times were times where you were expected to fit into a mold and stay there.
Yeah. Okay. If I may, Arun, could I just disrupt that thinking a little bit?
Please. Absolutely.
Courage helps, but it's not what I drew on. When I'm training other professional speakers or intending professional speakers, and a lot of people get on stage and they're really nervous, and they say, "Oh, I'm so nervous," and I get them not to draw on courage. I get them to draw on a sense of certainty.
Yeah.
When you have certainty about what you need to do, then the courage follows. It is because I was certain about what I needed to do and what was important for me and the things that I wanted to achieve in life. It was not the path that other people would have chosen for me, but I was certain of it. And so drawing on that certainty, and in the sense, it was a belief. Right?
Yeah.
And in fact, against all the evidence that I would have had an easier career, following the conventional path.
Because that's what we are all conditioned to, right? We want safety and we want certainty. That gives us security.
Yeah.
That, okay, you know what? I've got my my sort of sources of finances taken care of, so I can take care of this. How does an average person who may be listening to this conversation embrace uncertainty? Because that's what you are saying. Embrace uncertainty. Did you have family responsibilities? Did you have, I'm sure you would have, like every one of us, we've got responsibilities. How do you embrace uncertainty when you've got liabilities?
Okay, and that is the correct question. First of all, the general question of, like most people are uncomfortable with uncertainty. Most people are uncomfortable with uncertainty itself, even without responsibilities.
Yeah.
And so the very foundation level is when you are certain enough about the things you are certain about, like, your beliefs, your willingness to do what it takes to make those happen, then that helps inoculate you against the fear of uncertainty. Having said that, we do have responsibilities, and it is not the case that I've led my life randomly, recklessly, ignoring financial security. However, I did have faith that I would be okay. I did have faith that I will be okay. And this is what I teach when I'm teaching confidence. I don't talk about confidence that, you don't need a confidence that everything will work out for the best. Like, you want to go into a negotiation with a big potential client, for instance. You're mad to be completely confident that the potential client will say yes. That is not in your control. But the confidence that you can have is a deeply held belief that no matter what, I will be okay.
Mm.
And that is the foundation of my confidence, that no matter what, I will be okay. I may have hardships, but I will be okay. Things will not turn out the way I want, but I will be okay. Right? That my family will have hardship, but we together will be okay.
Yeah.
So,
David, how do you develop that belief? All right, that I will be taken care of, no matter what, my needs will be taken care of. How do you develop that? How do you tell yourself some affirmations? Do you have some goals that you visualize? Like, there is a lot of talk about, these practices and all of that. Is that what you tell your clients, that, this is what you should do? How does one develop belief in uncertainty that they will still be taken care of?
Okay. By not believing that I'll be taken care of, but that I will be okay. And they are very different, because I will be okay gives me agency and power to still look after myself. Right? I will be okay because I will make myself okay. I will be okay because I will do what it takes to survive and come through stronger. But the question is, how do you develop that? It is partly through just continually telling myself that. Partly, though, through looking at the small achievements that I make, that I have, and counting those up as little victories. See, I can do this. See, I can do this. And that might be just finishing a book that I found difficult.
Yeah.
I did this. I look at every small achievement and I think, yep, I did this. And what it does is it imprints on your brain layers and layers and layers of positive evidence that you can get things done.
Yeah.
Okay. And so that is really, that has been my whole process, if I may. That has been the whole process. Just looking at the small achievements, because what we tend to do, because we're always looking at what's next, we tend to discount what we've already achieved, discount what we've already done. Look, yeah, but what else do I want? What else do I want? Okay, I've achieved this level, but I want now this, and we tend to forget the score. We're only looking at the next goal. We've forgotten about the score that we've already achieved, and so finding meaning in our small achievements.
Yeah. And I think just to add to that thing, Damien, is that we tend to catastrophize negative things.
Absolutely.
Like, oh my God, my car tire got punctured. Look at that. I'm a failure. Nothing works for me ever, So we tend to exaggerate it, right?
Yeah, we do. But
I think what I'm hearing is that, to have a conscious focus on what is actually working out in your life, and being grateful for that,
Absolutely. Just acknowledging it is a great form of gratefulness, a great form of gratitude, because most people don't even stop and acknowledge it. They just assume that everything should
has to work out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And that's so true, Damien. It reiterates, how there's a book which has been written by, I'm forgetting the name of the person, but the book title was so critical. It says Molecules of Emotion. Okay. And that book actually has been written by a PhD person who talks about how these molecules created by gratitude. Suppose if you have gratitude, it creates a healing molecule in your body, which actually heals you of your, medical issues that you might be having. I'm not saying there's no role for medicine and other things, but it is the interaction between the medicine and what your body is doing to it. It creates the ultimate outcome. So it's an amazing read. And then I was thinking about that the moment when you were talking about how these emotions of gratitude and having this belief actually can work for you. Now, Damien, yes, please. No, you go.
I was going to say what is interesting about that is molecules of emotion. It creates a great visual in our mind that helps
Yeah.
to anchor the belief. Now, and it goes back to what you were asking about before. Whether there are actually identifiable, isolatable molecules that do these things, I don't know. Right?
Yeah.
That's for evidence. It'd be hard to get the evidence on that one, but it doesn't matter
Yeah.
because it creates a visual in our mind that can fuel a belief. Because one thing we do know, and that is positive attitude, gratitude helps our health. That we do know. And so if we've got a molecule floating around that bounces off the walls of our gratitude and it increases our health, then that's a great picture to keep in our mind. I actually do.
Well, they've actually found the molecule, Demian. It is actually called oxytocin.
Oh,
It's the
oxytocin,
love hormone.
Yes,
It's the
yes,
love
yes.
hormone, when a baby embraces the mum, they
All
did
the
a
oxytocin.
beautiful image. It releases oxytocin in both the mum and the child,
Okay.
so that's the hormone of gratitude, I would say,
Nice.
So I'm very mindful of the time, Demian. I want to know about your vegetarian story. Please tell me, being a vegetarian myself, what made you do that?
Well, very different from you because I did not grow up in a vegetarian family. I grew up in a very carnivorous family. And so again, that was me going against the grain of everybody's expectations. But I read an interesting book by Susan George. This is in the 70s, How the Other Half Dies. Right?
Wow.
And it's about how we, and many of your listeners will know these statistics, that we tend to feed grain to cattle, to poultry, to pigs, and the grain is diverted from human consumption to animals. And of course, people say, what's the difference? We eat the grain, we eat the meat, but 10%, we only keep 10% of the energy up the food chain. For every 10 kilos on average, for every 10 kilos of grain we feed to animals, we get 1 kilo of meat.
Correct.
And in those days, there was a lot of people starving, Arun. And I also knew that no matter whether there were droughts or crop failures or whatever, pestilence, whatever, the rich people always had enough and poor people did not. Just the world disasters just shift the needle of where how many poor people didn't starved.
Correct.
And so I, in terms of who I was, in the sense of my sense of identity, I did not want to be part of that. Like in terms of the certainty that someone has, certainty is for me rooted in a sense of your identity. What sort of a person am I? I am not a person who is part of a problem like that. I'm not a person who is part of a solvable problem that does so much harm. And so back in the early 80s, more than 40 years ago, I stopped eating meat.
Wow. I'm just thinking you must be giving so much grief to your family, from just bucking the trend.
Oh, it was terrible. I said, like my father goes, what do you mean? Like, after all we've said and done, do you hate us? Like, like I come from a traditional Lebanese family, and it was, the drama. There's only ever drama. So yeah, it was like that.
In fact, if I ever bring up this to my patients or anybody's talking to me, the first question is, where am I going to get my iron from? Where am I going to get my protein from? And I'm sure those things would have come up in your discussions, given your dad was a doctor.
Yeah.
That where are you going to get the nutrition from?
Well, it was actually my uncle that was the doctor.
Oh, right. Yeah.
That's right. But my dad was he was a traditional Lebanese businessman,
right?
Who used to worry about my health and things like that. But the fact is, I do need to be more deliberate about my food. Yeah. I do need to consciously get enough protein, but I have no problem getting protein. I have no problem. I have no problem getting iron. I have no problem. It just means I need to be more conscious of it. And
exactly.
That was it. So as a vegetarian running product development at Barbecues Galore,
I know.
Apparently, I'll cook a very good steak. A barbecue, a very good. I don't know. I've never tasted it, but people tell me. And but we used to make barbecues that you could cook vegetables and other things on.
Yeah, I was going to say there's so many options now.
And we actually started in Australia. We actually started that trend of cooking something other than meat. on
Wow.
a barbecue, and that was
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, because we are in Australia, we are such a barbecue centric society, right? Like everything
Oh,
hovers
nice.
around the barbecue,
It is, and it is
which is
nice.
great.
I
It
do
is
like that.
great.
Yeah, I do like
I
that.
love it too. Yeah. All right. Well, Damien, I'm very mindful of the time, and we're coming to almost the end of it. And I have these three questions that I ask all my guests. I must say that I've thoroughly enjoyed our conversation.
Yeah.
And there have been a lot of nuggets that you have been dropping, which I've been kind of taking note of as well. But here are the three questions. I call them the three truths. And, I ask all my guests, and it's really interesting to see the responses that we get because, this is where the summary of all of this comes into. It culminates into this beautiful moment where we can pick up something from this conversation. So my first question to you is, Damien, what is the single most habit that you would say that has given you the success and the accomplishments, whatever you feel you want to label it as, and has brought you to where you are today? If there was just one habit, what would that be?
Oh, there's no doubt in my mind, Arun. The habit I have of whenever something happens, what can I learn? I ask, what can I learn?
Yeah.
And I never ask about you try something, is it a success or is it a failure? Like used to be a research scientist where success and failure of an experiment doesn't mean anything because you don't know the outcome. Research is you don't know the outcome. That's what you're trying to find out. Is that there's no success or failure. You only ever ask, what can I learn? So if I'm like starting a new business initiative, it doesn't work as well as I expected. What did I learn? Not, oh my God, I failed. What can I learn?
Yeah.
That has helped my sense of certainty because no matter what happens, no matter what,
you're always learning.
Exactly. So I feel like I've taken a forward step.
Yeah. And I think having that friend of yours who made a cartoon about you sitting in the library surrounded by books, I did expect any other answer, that would be your number one thing. All right. Now, if all your work, this is second question, if all your work, whatever you have done, videos, audios, workshops, everything was taken away for a moment, hypothetically speaking, what would be the three truths, your three pieces of wisdom that you would leave for your loved one?
Okay. First up, unlike what most people say, life is not short. Life is a long time. We just waste most of it. And so given that life is like 80 years is a long time. And so the idea is to play a long game rather than chasing short-term victories, short-term achievements. Look at the long term. When I gave away corporate life in 1990, right? When I gave away corporate life, I had a plan, but it was a long time away, right?
Right.
But I knew that life is a long time. Now, yes, it might end prematurely. And if that happens, oh, well, right? But the idea is I expected my life to be a long time, so I played the long game. And that has given me my North Star. That has given me my sense of certainty.
Beautiful.
Probably the second one is that the world's going to be okay. The world moves in cycles. Okay, the empires rise, empires fall. We cure this disease, we create this other disease, right? We find new means of justice, we find new ways of thwarting justice. Right? Humanity will continue to repeat the same mistakes, no matter how much we say, I'm going to change the world for the better. Humanity will keep on repeating the same mistakes, but as individuals, we are not locked into those cycles. Individuals,
we have a choice.
Correct.
It's like
humanity does not. Humanity keeps on stumbling.
Yeah.
But individuals are not locked into the endless cycle of good times and bad.
Yeah.
And so, like, life's a long time. Cycles will always be there, but we can be independent of them. Probably the third one, which I like most, is that because, as you know, I always talk about the long-term perspective, but my third one is that moments are precious. That moments are precious, and I really savor moments. Like, I look at the long term, but that is like looking at the map, but focusing on how you're walking at the same time.
Yeah, living in the moment, right?
It is people
having a vision, but savoring the moment.
Yeah, and that is something that we've heard all our lives.
Yeah,
but you just, my goodness, it takes a long time before you go
now I get it.
Now I get it.
Yeah, no, spot on. That's beautiful. That's beautiful, Damien.
Mm.
And the last one is, what do you see as your legacy? How would the world remember that Demian was here?
This might surprise you, Arun, but I don't need the world to remember that I was here. I need the world to have been better because I lived, but I don't need the world to know that it was me. Like, as I said, the 7 reasons why people say no, which is the only complete model of persuasion of human influence. It's a fundamental question which we've been trying to answer for decades. That will be my central work, but it will not be named after me.
Yeah.
It will not
And
be
I'll say this, that I'm not surprised, because coming from a person who's embraced uncertainty
Yeah.
so beautifully,
Yeah.
and I've learned that through this conversation, I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
Because you're so right. You know, there are so many people who have come ahead of us, who've done amazing things. But you know what? We don't remember all of them.
Exactly. I remember Isaac Newton. I remember Leonardo da Vinci. But I'm
Yeah.
not one of those. I'm not one of those people.
Yeah.
But I don't mind if the world doesn't remember. However, in terms of legacy, it's
Yeah.
important that my son, I've one son, Jay, and I've got
Yes.
lots of nieces and nephews.
Yes.
They need to have a legacy. So they need to have my legacy, because a family needs to have stories.
Yeah.
A family needs to have stories about those who went before them. And so my legacy to my son, which he is already living, I must say, is that you make your own path.
Yeah.
There are other people's expectations, but you make your own path, take the long-term view, and achieve what you want, and be able to resist that.
Right? And savor the moment, right?
And savor the moment. But my son could have taught me that when he was 12 years old.
I know.
My whole life. But that is my legacy. I do want to leave a legacy for my for the next generation of my own family.
Yeah.
Every family needs stories.
Yeah, I totally agree. Demian, from the bottom of my heart, can I say I thoroughly enjoyed every moment of our conversation. You're an amazing man. You're doing some amazing work. And I think your energy radiates it. I don't need to be convinced that, your work and your words are coming from your heart. So I acknowledge you for that. And I'm really looking forward to your forthcoming book on the 7 reasons, which still remain a bit of a secret.
Oh, yeah.
That will be unraveled in the book. Do you have a title for the book, or not yet?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay. No stress. Absolutely. But Demian, thank you again for your time. Truly appreciate it. And I really value our friendship. Thanks again.
Thank you very much, Arun. I can assure you the pleasure has been mine. It has been a rare privilege to have spent this time with your listeners. So thank you, my good friend.